You're listening to the Third Coast Gridiron on the LSG Network with your host, Marc Henry.
As district matchups heat up in H-Town, we get down to the nitty-gritty. Who's going to be the champions of these districts? It's going to be settled on the turf in the next 3 to 4 weeks. It's playoff time, or getting ready for playoff time, district matchups, big-time performances from last week, and, of course, a big game of the week, Summer Creek at Atascocita. We're going to talk about that and more right here on the TCG, the Third Coast Gridiron, H-Town's podcast, live right here on the Lone Star Gridiron Network, the authority for high school football. I'm your host, Marc Henry. Each week, Season 6 is going down, man. We appreciate you for tuning in and chopping it up with us, man. Listen, we're going to get you ready. We're going to get you set. We're going to get you ready to go. We'll talk about last week, and we'll get you ready for the top games this week in H-Town. Right here on the TCG, the Third Coast Gridiron. We'll take a small break. We'll be right back.
Lone Star Gridiron is looking for interns. Over the years, we have helped dozens of students get jobs in sports media. If you want to shortcut your path to a career in sports media, click on the internship link on LoneStarGridiron.com.
All right, let's hop into it. The big game last week, Summer Creek, Atascocita, the battle for Humble. Now, we know that Humble High School's there. We know that Kingwood's close. But these are the two creme de la creme programs in the city of Humble. And it was a barn burner. 38-35, Summer Creek comes out on top. Noah Spinks leads a fourth quarter drive, and he makes it happen. Benny Easter had a phenomenal game. Braylon Causey was on top of his game. The Bulldogs get the win, and it's one of those games that you had to be at to see it. This was at Turner Stadium, of course, in the heart of Humble, right in the middle of it, and these guys got it done. Noah Spinks is a junior quarterback who's been playing phenomenal. He's a big reason that the Bulldogs have a chance to take this district. Now, they still have Kingwood. They got Sea King this week, and they still have North Shore on the schedule. But they proved that they're one of those teams, and we've been talking about Summer Creek. If you've been listening to the show, Summer Creek, in my opinion, is one of those teams that could possibly make a run. I would count Fort Bend Ridge Point. And when we say teams, we talk about teams that don't have North Shore, Katy, Shadow Creek. These are teams that have been perennial powers here in H-Town for the last few years. Summer Creek is quietly, well, not quiet anymore, but quietly they've been building and building this year to get it done. And, Spinks finished 29-43 for 499 yards, 3 tutties, and just his fifth start. Right now, the Bulldogs are ranked in the top 5 in the state of Texas. Now, Atascocita falls to 2-3 and 0-2 in the district. I think that 0-2 in the district is something that may loom large later. They still have to play North Shore, and they've already lost to Sea King. I still think the Eagles will be a playoff team. But 23-6A, I think, is wide open. Of course, North Shore is still playing North Shore. But I think Summer Creek is going to have something to say about this. Coach Kenny Harrison has these guys playing at a high level. I really think that these guys have a chance to compete for this district. They still have a couple of big games left, but this was a big, big game. This was one of those games that you had to be present to see it, back and forth. Of course, Corday Mack got busy. I really think that he's one of the best athletes in the country. Of course, he's an Arizona State commit. But Benny Easter, he's a junior wide receiver over there. He had a phenomenal night, 13 catches, 218 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's saying something. He's got all of the schools looking at him. This might be one, man. Hey, U of H, man. I'm tired. U of H. This might be a guy we need to keep home. You got Keyshawn Henderson coming. You got Jaden Warren coming. This could be another piece to the puzzle in the 2027 class. CJ Toney had a phenomenal game. 216 yards and a touchdown as well. But Corday Mack was phenomenal. I think he's still going to give these guys a chance to be a playoff team. 206 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, passed for 153 and a score in this game. I think that both of these teams have the opportunity to be playoff teams. I know they talk about districts in the state of Texas, but 23-6A is one of those districts. It's one of those districts. We talk about how these teams compete and how these teams play at a high level. You got to look at it. If I'm a college recruiter, I make my I get an Airbnb over in this area, man. 236A. It's one of the top districts in the state. Could be one of the top districts in the country when it comes to the amount of talent that you see on a week-to-week basis. But shout out to Summer Creek for pulling out the big one. It's one of those epic games that we had to talk about. Definitely, we had our eyes on it for sure. But let's talk about a few more matchups around the H before we get to top performers around H-Town in Week 6. Baytown Sterling is playing at a high level. They haven't made the playoffs since 2008. They haven't won a district title since 1983. But the 2025 squad's on its way, man. They improved to 5-1 to 2-0 in District 9, 5A D1 with a big victory over a very good Barbers Hill team. I like what Baytown Sterling's doing. That's what we do here at the Third Coast Gridiron. We try to talk about teams that's not on everybody's radar. Of course, we're going to talk about the big dogs as well because big dogs do big dog things. But shout out to Baytown Sterling. They got it done. Elijah Lewis rushed for 200 yards and 3 tutties. I like what this team's doing. I've been keeping my lazy eye on them. Now, they still got Port Arthur Memorial, which will be on the 31st of this month. That's going to be a big game. But Baytown Sterling, they're doing their thing. Not a lot of people probably talked about them, probably including myself coming up. As the season was preparing to come up. But, hey, they're in the thick of things over there. Cy Ranch, 3-2 on the season. These guys are playing at a high level. They broke the bank with it. 84-14 over Cypress Park in 16-6A. This is a team that you need to know about. 84 points. That's saying something. That's a lot of points, a lot of scoring. You definitely got to keep an eye on this team. They're 2-0 in 16-6A. That's nothing to sneeze at. You got to watch this team. Cy Ranch. Big time game last week. And they put up 84 points. They put up Randy Moss. 84. Man. Of course, we in Houston, man, they put up 84. Some swangers. You know what I'm saying? But Sean Simon from LaPorte had a monster game last week. The Bulldogs are definitely going to be a playoff team coming out of 11-5 AD1. Sean Simon's only a sophomore, but he's one of the best backs in the 2028 class in the state of Texas that you need to know about. He's a 4-star recruit. He's one of the best rushers. Single game record for LaPorte. 380 yards and 5 tutties. LaPorte's ranked number 8 in the state of Texas, according to Dave Campbell's. This is a team you need to know about. I'm telling you right now. Sean Simon's been balling out. Had a chance to see him last year. Definitely a guy you want to pull up on and see. Angleton's in that district. We're talking about these guys as well. LaPorte, they met last year. I think they met last year twice, if I'm not mistaken. But Angleton's not playing no games. Wildcats are crushing their opponents, man. They had a 68-0 victory over Pasadena, number 5 in the state in 5A D1. They've scored at least 56 points in every game this season. And the D has been stingy, holding people to only 10 points a game. Listen, I think the Angleton Wildcats are definitely a team you need to know about. Bryce Duran has been balling out. 6 passes for 97 yards and 2 tutties. Also got it done on the ground with 2 touchdowns and 48 yards. They got to play LaPorte here. That's going to be a big game. Definitely. Again, October 31st. Is there something going on Halloween? LaPorte, Angleton. Definitely something you need to know about, man. I really think that these guys know that this is going to be on the horizon. As long as these guys can keep rolling, that's going to be a big game. Probably going to be for the district title as well. And definitely a matchup you need to know about. But listen, we're going to talk about some players that we're going to spotlight right here on the TCG. We're going to take a small break right here on the Lone Star Gridiron, and we'll be right back.
Hey, do you need topsoil, fill dirt, sand, mulch, gravel, limestone, you name it? Do you need that delivered and or spread? Texas Tree Cycle in Victoria has you covered for residential and commercial projects, big or small. These guys do it all. They do some amazing work. You can call them at 361-237-8006 for a free estimate. That's Texas Tree Cycle, bringing quality materials to your yard.
Hey, one of my sayings is you got to let your playmakers be playmakers. You got to let your ballers be ballers. Let's talk about a few top performances around the H in Week 6. Kerry Clay, running back at Galena Park. Now, we know Galena Park shares the spotlight or shares Galena Park with the North Shore Mustangs. You don't get a chance to hear about the Yellow Jackets a lot, but they got a 34-14 victory on Thursday of last week. Man, Clay, 229 yards, 2 tutties. And listen, they're 2-2 on the season. They got a chance to make the playoffs. They got to keep balling, though. Last year, Clay ran for over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns in only 6 games. So he's due. Shout out to Kerry Clay. Torian Brown, DB, Westbury, played a big role in the 58-36 win over Milby last Friday. He's only a sophomore, class 2028, 3 interceptions, 7 tackles. And what can you say? HISD in the building. Westbury's 5-1 on the season. Definitely talking about those guys for sure. Shout out to Westbury cornerback Torian Brown on the top flight performance. Let your playmakers be playmakers. Caleb, Maryland, do it all, everything. Utah State commit. North Shore, listen, 9-14 for 336 yards and 5 tutties. He has 15 touchdown passes through 5 games. Had a chance to see him early in the year against South Oak Cliff, and he kept those guys in the game. Now, I know South Oak Cliff won the game, but Caleb Maryland was phenomenal. He had a phenomenal game last week. 9-14 for 336 yards. Come on, man, that's balling. You let your playmakers be playmakers. Santiago Fernandez, Woodlands Christian High School. 6-0 on the season. Shout out to the Woodlands Christian. The Warriors quarterback had a phenomenal night in a 44-27 victory over Boiling. He's an Army commit, 15-22, 261 yards and 3 tutties, 117 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Let your playmakers be playmakers. Vincent Joseph, Humble. Now, we talked about the Battle Humble, but listen, I think that this guy, 23-6A, I'm telling you, this district is loaded. He had a breakout performance in a 32-21 victory over Channelview. 20 of 33 for 292 yards and 132 on the ground and 19 carries. Accounted for 5 total touchdowns. He balled out. Let your playmakers be playmakers. Let them be ballers. A few around the age that got it in week 6. Let's take a break. We're going to finish up the show and talk about week 7, man. I can't believe we are just about through the entire season. I don't want to let it go, but we got to talk about these district matchups right here in the H for week 7. This is the TCG. I am your host, Marc Henry. We'll be right back.
Coaches, boosters, parents, every sport deserves a spotlight. From football and volleyball to basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, track, wrestling, and more. Give your athletes a weekly coaches show that builds pride and raises funds. Lone Star Podcast Network makes it turnkey. You talk for a few minutes. We handle production and distribution. Sponsors love it. Families share it. And your program benefits. Get the free information kit at lonestarpodcast.com/coaches. That's lonestarpodcast.com/coaches. Your team. Your sport, your show.
Lone Star Gridiron is looking for interns. Over the years, we have helped dozens of students get jobs in sports media. If you want to shortcut your path to a career in sports media, click on the internship link on LoneStarGridiron.com.
Let's wrap up the show talking about a big game in week 7, which involves Summer Creek again taking on Sea King. Now, Deion Sims had a monster game against Atascocita a few weeks ago, and he's going to be a guy that the Bulldogs need to pay close attention to. Of course, Dylan Mitchell is a guy that's going to get the rock as well. Summer Creek, of course, Noah Spinks is having a phenomenal year. You got Causey as well as Benny Easter. These guys are loaded. I think that this game is going to come down to, who has the least amount of turnovers. This is going to be a lot of big explosive plays, but I think Summer Creek can weather this storm. Don't get focused on the next few games. Just play the game that's right there in front of you. Of course, still in this district, 23-6A, it's loaded. And we talked about this a few minutes ago at the beginning of the show with North Shore, Summer Creek, and all 3 of these teams, including Sea King, are undefeated. So this will be a de facto kind of shift as far as who's going to be challenging for the district title. Both of these teams want this one. I can tell you that right now. And looking at this district, Humble's 1-1 and Kingwood's 1-1. So it's going to be a fight to the end. Now, of course, Atascocita is sitting at 0-2, but I think they have a chance to get themselves back in this particular district. Now, for this particular game, Noah Spinks is going to be at the head of this snake when you talk about the Bulldogs. His ability to spread that football around to his playmakers. Again, let your playmakers be playmakers. Let your ballers be ballers. That's what we're talking about here. Now, C. King, Dylan Mitchell, and of course Deion Sims, who's having a phenomenal season, or the guys who are going to touch that rock. But that defense is going to have to come up big. This is a big-time game. Definitely a game that the TCG will be having an eye on as well. Shout out to the Woodlands College Park, man. They're playing at a phenomenal high level. I know they don't have a big game against Caney Creek as far as a top flight opponent maybe, but I think that these guys have a chance to make a big playoff run. They're playing at a high level, and that's a team that I'm going to have eyes on. Tomball taking on Klein Oak. I think this is a game that you need to know about. Of course, we're talking about 15-6A. That includes Klein Collins, Magnolia, Klein Kane, Tomball sitting at 2-1, and Klein Oaks at 2-2. Again, this is one of the tougher districts. We've talked about this in the previous episodes. If you go back a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this district as having a lot of quality teams. 15-6A is very, very challenging when you look at all of these teams. Of course, the middle of the pack, you got to start to separate yourself. This is a big game for Klein Oak and Tomball. I think both teams are fighting for playoff position when it's kind of jumbled up in the middle. Again, we just mentioned all of these teams at 2-2. That includes Klein, Kane, and Oak, and you got Tomball at 2-1. So I think that both of these teams know that they're playing for their playoff lives right now. This is a big game. A big, big game in 15-6A, and a game that we'll definitely be having eyes on as well. I think that both of these teams know, in this particular district, they're jockeying for position. They have to really, really, bear down, if you will, and clamp down and really get this game. We talked about Angleton earlier. They got a big one against Friendswood. This is not a game that they need to look past. I think the Wildcats know what they have to do. Check out some of these scores. They put up 75 against Brazerswood. Clear Lake, they put up 68. They put up 59 against Foster. And Porter, 56, and they just shut out Pasadena. I think that this team they've got their sights getting out of Houston and making a run. Crosby's 2-0. We mentioned LaPorte 2-0 in that district. So it's not done. Of course, Porter's 1-1, and then you got Kingwood Park. This is a tough district, but now Friendswood's 2-3 on the season and 0-2 in the district. But knowing Angleton Wildcats, they're going to be focused and ready to go. I brought this game up because this is a team that's fighting for district. We mentioned that they're going to face LaPorte here at the end of October for Halloween, and I think it's just a game that they got to take care of. You got to play the team right in front of you, and I know the Wildcats will do that. They're a veteran team. Again, they were a playoff team last season, and that's a big game for those guys. I think that they know they have to take care of business. Of course, LaPorte, they take on Fort Bend Kempner. This is a big game for them as well. You play the game that's right there in front of you. You can't overlook anybody when it comes to this particular district. And we talked about that. Big game down in 5A D2. Now, we know Richmond Randall is talented, and they haven't lost a game. They had the week off after taking on Iowa Colony, but Texas City is right in the mix in 9-5A D2. We talked about the Stingarees being undefeated. They've only got one loss on the season. Santa Fe in this district is 2-0. Randall's going to be locked and loaded, but I think Texas City thinks that they got something to prove here. This is a big game. That's why we're mentioning. Of course, Landon Williams-Callis is going to get a lot of the fanfare and a lot of the focus when it comes to who they need to stop. But I think that Texas City's game for it. This is a big-time game in 5A Division II in that particular district. Of course, Iowa Colony and Randall are, going to get most of the headlines, but this is a big game that you need to keep an eye on. Now, also in that district, the Iowa Colony Pioneers are coming off a tough loss, but they got to get ready. They got to get ready for Santa Fe. We just mentioned them being 2-0. That's the next opponent. Now, for Santa Fe, they come in as not being a team that's been to the playoffs in a while. They're playing at a high level. This is a big game in the district. Again, we talked about this time of year is to start to be the jockeying for playoff positioning, and teams are going to start to really press to do that. This is a big game. I think that Santa Fe is going to have to really play physical because you got Jaden Warren, the Houston commit, and Carson White. Listen, Carson White played a phenomenal game against Randall with his legs and through the air. Jeremy Garner on the defensive side for Iowa Colony played a phenomenal game. And listen, Aaron Tenner is one of the top running backs in the state. Forget just Houston, top running backs in the state. You can go back and watch that game against Iowa Colony. He had a phenomenal game, and I think he's one of those backs that doesn't get a lot of fanfare, but this guy can play. Denham Barnes on the defensive side had a great game for Iowa Colony as well. This is a big game for those guys. They want to get back out there after their week off and get back to balling out. Henry Kalu is a guy that you need to know about on the defensive side as well. They got some guys. I think Iowa Colony knows that they got to get the ship back right and get back on the winning side of things. I expect them to play well, but they're not going to take this game lightly. Santa Fe's coming in with some momentum, and they're undefeated in the district. So I think that this is a game that a lot of people may not be talking about, but we got our eyes on it over here at the TCG. Man, this is going to be a big game, 9-5 AD2, but man, keep tuning into the TCG. We appreciate everybody that's been tapping in, man. The Third Coast Gridiron right here on the LSG Network. That's all we got for you this week. You can follow me on Twitter at Third Gridiron, also at MarkHen44 or On The Mark Sports, and definitely tap in with Top Texas Prospects, TXTP Show on Twitter as well, man. We got lots of information for you. And listen, go check out onthemarksports.com, man. Definitely got a lot of information there for you. Houston area game we broke down. Shout out to my guy Darren Hendricks, who was at the game last week. A great breakdown. And some top prospects from Atascocita as well in that Summer Creek game. Go check out onthemarksports.com right here on the TCG. The Third Coast Gridiron. We'll holler back next week.
Coaches, boosters, parents, every sport deserves a spotlight. From football and volleyball to basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, track, wrestling, and more. Give your athletes a weekly coaches show that builds pride and raises funds. Lone Star Podcast Network makes it turnkey. You talk for a few minutes. We handle production and distribution. Sponsors love it. Families share it. And your program benefits. Get the free information kit at LoneStarPodcast.com/coaches. That's LoneStarPodcast.com/coaches. Your team, your sport, your show.